These are the F50 Elite in the brand new Advancement Pack colorway for the Euro 2024. I am very excited to show you guys why I think these are one of the most impressive speed boots, and also why they remind me of the Puma Ultra 1.1. Let's hop into it. Now, this, of course, is the laced model. I already reviewed the Chameleon Pack colorway, or sort of that launch colorway of the Elite F50 LL. You've got the F50 logoing here. This looks like the new F50 box, which is a gloss black. You've got pretty much no logoing on any side other than a little size tag there. So you've got F50 Elite FG, and these are in my usual size US 9, a UK 8.5, Euro 42 and 2/3, and a 27 centimeters. So without further ado, guys, let's hop into the unboxing of this boot. From pictures, and this color of these comfort insoles would suggest, the pictures of this boot look absolutely sensational, and I'm so excited to see what they look like in person. So you get this kind of orangish, reddish colorway, really nice suede comfort insoles. The same came in a different color, obviously, on the laceless model. Little F50 logoing here, which is kind of a nice touch, and those you can put inside the boot if you want something a little bit more padded. Now, a quick aside about these particular ones. In trying on in the on-feet portion of the laceless model, they didn't really make that much of a difference, enough so that I was like, I don't really need the comfort insoles. The difference between these and the ones that have the holes in them for a more lightweight feel aren't really that different. Now, over time, would these maybe last a little bit longer? Probably. But at the same time, it's one of those things. Maybe you can use this as a space filler. So if you are somebody who is kind of in between sizes, maybe go with the size that's a little bit longer, and then you put these in, and then your feet will kind of fill up the boots a little bit more. So you could use it like that. I'm not sure. You also get a string bag, which is the 3 colors of the boot, of course, with this white background. You've got this nice royal blue F50 logoing and Adidas logoing here as well. And then, of course, that same kind of orangish red color, although it is slightly different. The insoles are slightly brighter, but fair enough, difference of materials as well. And then we'll open up, and here we go. Oh, nice. Oh my days. See, I think these look absolutely fantastic. I think these absolutely blow that purple and yellow, kind of Volt yellow colorway out of the water. I think these are way better looking. I think these should have been the launch colorway. And I guess in some respects they are, but because these are mass market and those Chameleon ones aren't. But God, these look so much better than those Chameleon ones, in my opinion. I think this looks so good. The blue accents kind of coming up and over the toe, the ombre like blue to this kind of orangey red material looks awesome, and super nice looking sole plate as well. I just think the white base looks fabulous, to be honest. And there's your left shoe, or my left shoe, I guess. Lovely. Really, really nice looking football boots. I think this is up there with some of the best launch colorways, just simply because of how simple they are, and also because of what they're going to be used for, which of course the Advancement Pack comes in some really nice colors. So you've got the blue, I believe it's a blue Copa Pure, if that's correct, I think. And then you've got the white F50, and then you've got this color royal blue, or Japan blue as they say, in the Predator as well. The only downside, and I actually don't mind it on this boot because this is a new speed boot and stuff, but on the Predator, I wish they had done the tongue in an actual red colorway to make it like royal red, royal blue, and white. That would have been really nice. On this F50, I think the accent of the slightly brighter orange colorway actually looks quite nice, but I think for that Predator, having the red, white, and blue Pred would have been pretty sweet as well. So let's go over some tech specs really quick. Let me take the paper out, and then I'll show you a little bit of the softness of the upper. Pretty nice. They are slightly different just in this lacing area than that laceless model. The laceless model is actually the exact same from an upper standpoint though, so you are still gonna get quite a nice upper feeling, hopefully with the addition of some good lockdown. So this is the Fiber Touch upper, which you can see the logoing right here. You've got Fiber Touch right there. And then you've also got the Sprint Web logoing right there on the toe. Now, this is a Fiber Touch upper, which basically is a textile-based synthetic material, not too dissimilar to things that we've seen on the midfoot of those 99-gram leather boots. I actually think they are, at least on feet, if they feel any similar, I would guess they're going to feel quite similar, at least in the forefoot. Obviously, with this new tongue construction, it might be a little bit different. But this Fiber Touch upper actually reminds me quite a bit of a combination of Speed Flow and Ultra 1.1. And I know you might be thinking, like, Ultra 1.1, what are you talking about? Like, these are nothing like that. The Ultra 1.1 was actually a fiber up. It was like a really close-knit weave that was very comfortable and moldable, but it didn't stretch all that much. This material reminds me a lot of that. So I wonder, at least on the inside and kind of the way that it wraps around my foot, it feels very similar to that. So that's just the comparison that I'm gonna draw. Now, from a Speed Flow perspective, I do have a pair of the laceless Speed Flows right here. And I wanna show you how similar the shape is. If you can see, they've gone for much more of a streamlined shape compared to the Crazy Fast that came before the F50, obviously. So they're going back to a couple generations ago on kind of the general shape of the boot. You can see it's a little bit on the narrow side in the heel area, about average, maybe a little narrow in the midfoot, and then it kind of comes up to a rough point in the forefoot area. And I think the similarities between these two boots as far as the shape goes, and especially with that launch colorway of the laceless model, very, very similar to the Speed Flow. So kind of an interesting comparison. And I think they're going back to the shape that really fit a lot of people and a lot of people really loved. I think the way that they went sort of with Speed Portal and then with Crazy Fast, not a lot of people loved those. And so they've gone back to something that's a little more sleek, a little more lower profile. And for a lot of people, I think this is going to be an absolute smash hit out of the park. Now, one of the other things that we're going to talk about in today's video, probably quite a lot because it is the major differentiator between the laceless and the laced model, is of course this little midfoot compression fit tunnel tongue. And I know that's kind of a tongue twister, pun intended, but that is what they call it. And essentially, they've made the Fiber Touch upper. If you can see, the Fiber Touch upper here is all that white material. And they've basically made the Fiber Touch upper. And then for the midfoot lockdown, they've just added this compression fit cage, which actually has some of these more metallic-y or shiny little bits to it. You'll see some in the some of the probe camera lens. I'll try to get right in there to show you some of this like internal cage. But essentially what that internal cage does is it really acts very similar to the 2010 F50s, which I've got somewhere behind me. Oh yeah, they're right below my lower back actually. So that was sort of the origin of that internal cage. And now of course we've seen that internal cage in many different sort of iterations across the different brands. And we see it all the time in speed boots now. The Mercs have their own version. Obviously, these F50s have a compression fit system now, and Puma's had their internal cage before. Like, there's really a lot of that type of technology. And so the fact that they've added it with a compression fit system is kind of interesting. It's like a neoprene feeling material that stretches quite easily. So that'll be nice. I imagine that's actually going to feel super, super comfortable on feet. And then of course, with the sole plate, we're getting an all new Sprint Frame 360 traction, which isn't too dissimilar from sole plates we've seen in the past. We're now going a lot closer to some of the sole plates that we already have on Adidas boots. So at least from the standpoint of 4 studs in the heel area, and then in the midfoot coming into the forefoot, you've got kind of the same, sort of the same like 8 to 9 stud configuration depending on the boot, or even 7 in certain circumstances. Now, what's really nice about this particular sole plate is they've gone with something a lot more neutral and flat, as opposed to the Speed Portal and the Crazy Fast, which were much more bended like that. And I know I'm obviously making sort of an exaggeration, but that's basically how they looked. They were a lot more curved upwards. So I actually really like that they've gone with a flatter sole. You've got rigidity here through the midfoot, a really nice amount of structure there, which is huge. And then for me, the biggest thing is really just the differences in the way that they've done the conical studs on sort of the outside, lateral and medial sides of that midfoot area, or like the sort of in between the midfoot and the forefoot area. And then you've got studs here in the forefoot and in the heel that are sort of more like bladed / chevron, but they're not as aggressive. They're quite rounded on each side, which is super nice. And it really adds to an experience on feet, at least from my experiences already doing a play test and stuff of the laceless model, which I'm not sure which video will come out between that one and the playtest, but I'll tell you now, the experience of playing on this sole plate is really, really nice. I'm a massive fan of this sole plate already. I think it's going to be really perfectly suitable for FG and AG pitches, honestly. And the new AG model of this, which I haven't had in hand yet, but it looks kind of too similar to this in order to really justify trying to go for an AG pair, especially because my guess is they're going to be a lot less available. So just something to think about. But overall, I really, really like the look of these. I think the colorway is a smash hit. And I also think the design of this boot lends itself to some really interesting potential colorways that could come out later on, just because of how simple the design is, how sleek the design is. The boot looks really nice, and of course you're going to get probably a lot of really cool colorways. Now, kind of the last thing that I want to talk about is this heel area, which of course they've kind of shaved down quite a bit from the previous generation. It's got a nice suede with a little bit of these little dimple kind of texturing to it. It's not a ton of texture, it's not going to really make that much of a difference, but I do think that they've shaved this down in a way that's going to feel a lot more comfortable, hopefully, on feet than the previous generation, which was super bulky and just didn't fit very well. And so the addition of the suede, cutting the padding down a little bit, making it a little bit more narrow and sleek, I think is going to add to the overall playing experience as well. So without further ado, guys, let's hop into the on-feet portion of the video, and we'll talk a little bit about how these fit, how the sizing is especially, and should you buy one over some of the other competitors in the speed boot market. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we are out here in the backyard. It is sprinkling a little bit, but I wanted to get this video done because I actually have an Ironman this weekend. How crazy. Okay, let's get these on feet. So, lovely, lovely, lovely looking boots, in my opinion. I think the cloudy skies, sort of neutral lighting makes these absolutely pop. Very, very cool. All right, let's get these on feet. I am wearing a pair of WeFoot grip socks. You guys can find a discount code down in the description box below. I am currently wearing the thin ones, but I do wear the thicker ones for game days, and they are absolutely fantastic. So, all right, here we go. So kind of an interesting getting these on feet just because of this compression fit system. So you really have to make sure that it doesn't get all bunched up. And then as we slide our foot in, very nice. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, cool. All right. So I would say these are actually quite similar to the Ultra from the sense that this upper, this fiber touch upper, doesn't stretch a whole lot. So obviously with the lacing system, more traditional sort of U-throat lacing system, there's definitely a little bit of give to the midfoot. But as you tie the laces tight, it really does feel like you're going to get a super nice lockdown. And similar to the Ultra, because of the way that that fiber sort of weave, I can't remember what the actual technology was of that upper, but there inevitably are going to be these little areas where the upper bows and stuff, because it's not a knit technically. Sizing also feels pretty good. Size 9 US, right there on the toe. So that feels really perfect, just like the laceless model. No problem at all. And I will say that these fit definitely pretty snug. They are pretty snug right around the midfoot, but the toe box actually feels nice. Midfoot on the medial side feels pretty good. And the lacing system actually feels quite good as well. And I will say straight out of the box, the heel area is much improved. The heel area feels fantastic. So that is one thing I think Adidas did a great job with. Obviously, they did a great job improving the heel in the Predator as well, and hopefully we'll see that translated over during the performance of like a play test and a performance test of these F50 Elites as well. So we're just going to finish tying these up, and I'll show you kind of what they look like both on feet. Again, a little bit of bowing here, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal, just because that will either go away or it'll be fine, because that type of bowing is more of a pet peeve and not something that really affects the performance necessarily. So that's all good. On feet, I think they look absolutely spectacular. Definitely a football boot that is good looking. The silo, I think they've done a really nice job with. As you can see on the ground, I'm gonna sit kind of flat on the ground. There's no little bend of the sole plate that comes up into a more curved thing. For the most part, this sole plate sits right flat on the ground, which is nice. There might be a little bit of rock, but it's very, very minimal, as you can see here. The heel area fits really nicely in and around the Achilles. Perfect amount of padding, in my opinion, and with the laces tied tight, you really get kind of locked back into the back of that heel area, which you can feel very, very well. So here's a look at the full kit. Obviously, I've got sweats and a jumper on just because it's actually quite cold outside right now, and it is sprinkling rain. But kit still looks great with these boots. White boots, hard to go wrong with. I think these look absolutely fantastic, and to be honest, they feel pretty good. I will say they're definitely not as soft as Speedflow, like I was comparing them earlier in the video, but they feel, again, like the shape of that Speedflow very much. So if you loved the shape of that boot, these are gonna be great for you. I think if you liked that, you liked the Puma Ultra 1.1 and 1.2 that were more of that sort of really tight-knit weave material, textile-based weave, I think you might really, really like this. Now, touch on the ball, I imagine, is going to be very similar to the laceless model, and indeed it is, except obviously I feel at least a lot more controlled in these just because these are laced, and so I feel much more locked in. But touch feels great, honestly. I'm super excited to go and actually play with these, because laceless boots really aren't my thing, even though I think they look kind of cool as a concept. Nice, but definitely not a boot that I would ever wear in a training session or a game, other than, of course, like to break them in and to do play tests for you guys here on the channel. But this boot, on the other hand, feels really dynamic. It feels super locked in, and I think for most people, this boot is actually going to fit really, really well. I am getting a little bit of hot spot here on the outside of the boot, but that's to be expected for a boot that doesn't have a whole lot of stretch and is more of a, kind of narrow speed boot silo. But I imagine that, hopefully these will break in pretty well. I've actually had quite a bit of success with the laceless model breaking those in already after only a session or two. I think I played in them for sure once for the video, and then I think I played in them one more time for just like a kick around session. And I'm already having really good success with breaking those in. And so because these are the same upper, I am hoping that I get, I expect these to be a little bit longer from a break-in time, but of course we'll see in the playtest video as well, depending on how those go. Now, from a kind of little pet peeve action here, as I put my foot down, there is a little bit of gap here, and then a little bit on the inside, but it doesn't feel like that gap is gonna make any difference to the actual play. The rest of my foot is super, super locked in, which is really nice. It's just that the material isn't quite sitting flush with my foot. So if I push this down, then this pops out, and if I push that down, then you can kind of see how it goes up and along the upper. So it just depends on where I want to have that little bubble. I imagine that as the boot breaks in and as it stretches and gets a little bit softer through break-in time, I should be pretty good, actually. I imagine these will be just fine, but at the end of the day, it's kind of one of those things, like you just gotta wear the boots and see how they go. Definitely going to do a play test in these. I am really excited about the sole plate. I'll be wearing it probably on AG surfaces, so I'll give you guys a good idea of how they fit on AG. I know for sure these are going to be great on FG. I'll probably wear them for a game if they end up fitting during the playtest video, but so far, Fiber Touch upper feels really good. It feels really secure, and so if you are somebody who fits in this particular foot shape or particular boot shape, if you will. I think the Fiber Touch is actually going to be really nice because it's going to give you quite a bit of lockdown that most people want from their speed boots. And then with that compression fit system, which to be honest, I don't feel that much. Like it's not overwhelming. It doesn't feel, I don't know, maybe I'll start to notice it when I start to play and the Fiber Touch starts to break in. Maybe that internal cage will really hold the shape of the boot. But right now, I'm not really noticing that much of a difference. Although I can feel like my midfoot just has like a slight gentle like hug around it. So we'll see kind of how it performs. I mean, ideally it's a performance enhancing situation and not just sort of a gimmick. And that's something that I know, hopefully will reveal itself during the play test. So excited to get these out on pitch. This 360 sole plate is also really nice. So very, very pumped. I love touch on the ball. From a grip perspective, now I can speak on this because I've literally just gotten done a couple days ago filming the play test of the laceless model. Now, the grip element, this texturing called sprint web. So that's this kind of, I don't know how you would, I guess it's a web-like kind of situation, but basically all these little lines that you see are all this kind of grit texturing, and that's not a sticky material. So unlike a GX2, you're not going to feel, as you're manipulating the ball back and forth, you're not going to feel the ball like stick to the surface of the boot, right? Or vice versa. With this one, it's much more like the texturing of a Phantom GT2 or even the SKX. So it's more of a raised texturing that's just going to give you a little bit of extra something, in a condition like this, where it's a little bit rainy, surface is a little bit moist or wet, and you're going to have nice amount of control and no problems, manipulating the ball, doing any sort of like bend or whip type stuff. It's not going to slide straight off the surface of your boot. So that's something that I think is nice. It's a little bit of an extra touch over something like a Vapor, right? Vapor has absolutely zero tech on it other than that upper, and so the Vaporposit doesn't add any, there's nothing on top of the Vaporposit Plus that's gonna add any sort of texture, whereas this does. And I actually think this is super nice because it's super minimal, but you can definitely notice it when you're doing any sort of whipped ball or any sort of kind of ball manipulation drill or anything like that. So that's gonna wrap up today's video for the F50 Elite. Now, this is one of those boots that I am really excited by, but I'm also sort of cognizant that there are multiple options within the lineup for different people. And of course, the F50 Elite Plus or F50 Plus Elite, whatever the name structure is, I will also be reviewing very soon. That one is like a whole different level of technology and kind of interesting things going on there. So stay tuned for that review as well. That should come out in the next couple weeks as I get those boots in. But overall, F50 Elite, definitely a boot that I would recommend for kind of middle width to narrow foot shapes. And then stay tuned for my answer about wider foot shapes for the playtest video as I get them in, or as I get them on and really start playing with them. So far, true to size fits me pretty well. I am getting a little bit of hot spots, but we'll see how we go from there. So as always, be awesome, guys. Take care. I'll see you in the next video.